feel free to do so. So anyway, we're going to get started in about 20 seconds or so. Again, if you introduce yourselves in the chat, that'd be absolutely wonderful. And also as an explanation, if you see two lots of me coming up, it's really Muriel and me, because the way the software works at the moment, we have to share the same login. I think it's something they're doing behind the scenes to try and make that so it works differently.
So this comment that's been put out wasn't really from Rupert, kissing you all.
Yeah, it could be a little bit embarrassing, couldn't it? A little bit embarrassing. Okay, so in which case we'll get started. It's officially 12 seconds past 4 o'clock. On Facebook, you'll probably see it 20 seconds behind. On YouTube, 20 seconds behind that. And today is about bringing sales forward, getting your time back. And in terms of what we covered yesterday and the day before, what we've covered is sharing market insights and how this impacts with your business. And obviously, clearly, with what's going on recently with Boris Johnson, his recent announcement, and things like that, it's a really good example of how we need to adapt and change our business models to what we are today. And we've covered the importance of focusing on building your tribes and supporters and building your community to achieve growth. We talked about having a balanced product portfolio of products, how to get the marketing mix right, and the importance of the social selling blueprint. We've also discussed Google, Facebook, and Instagram pay-per-click, admittedly in outline terms because it's a very big subject in its own right. And we've given in an introductory session to LinkedIn and also explained why that should feature so highly in terms of increasing your lead flow and sales-based opportunities. What we're going to be covering today is explaining a lot more about LinkedIn advanced techniques, okay? Clearly, this is advanced at a strategic level. If you're at a user level, then it's a little bit different. But this is looking more from a strategic point of view today. And we'll also be explaining how to use how we can give you the tools so you can bring your sales forward and get your time back. And we'll be agreeing an action plan with you as we go through, and of course, as the competition a bit later on. So who have we got on, Muriel? Is other people, anyone else that you want? I'm not sure what Muriel's doing there. But I think Muriel's probably trying to sort of headphones out or something. But as part of that, if you've got any comments, do feed that in. That'd be absolutely wonderful to be able to do that. So I've just lost my mouse again.
I just got a warning to say my laptop was running low on juice, so I've just plugged in.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay. So I'll let you keep an eye on the comments and chat. If that's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So today, today, all being well, one lucky prize winner will win the prize worth just under £8,000, and that includes BizGrowth premium membership, laptop, software, and also the training all around that in terms of generating more business. So now if we do have a draw today, which is possible, I've tried to throw a few questions in there to make it less likely to happen. But if we do end up with a draw where several people win, what will happen is it'll probably roll over into tomorrow, because Barnaby's on the live stream tomorrow, and we'll announce the winner then if there's a tie. And what will enable you to do is to actually check the tiebreaker questions. And if necessary, if I feel a bit compromised because it may be the person that's won is someone I know, then we'd probably ask Barnaby to act as arbitrator on that as well, so we can make sure we're entirely fair over everything. Now, as part of today, when you get close to the end, we will invite you to complete the questionnaire. And also, as part of that, we'll invite you, of course, this is all free again, to take part in the discovery session or strategy call. If you don't want to enter the competition, you don't need to. But what I would suggest you do is when you get at the end, do still complete the questionnaire, because that'll help us to help you with any particular questions that you want to have answered. Now, going on more onto the LinkedIn side in terms of advanced techniques. First of all, what we're going to be discussing is how you can define and own your market, and what you can put in place as well, so you can be much more targeted. I think we talked about this on Monday and Tuesday, but a lot of people would describe themselves as being generalists. Typically, if someone's describing themselves as being a generalist, it may indicate they haven't really thought properly about segmentation, and that's really, really important. Okay, and also be niche and micro niche. So try and think of how to micro niche down and make sure you have a whole suite of products to suit different price points. And obviously, hopefully, what Ian shared with us yesterday gave us some really good insights onto that particular part. Now, you probably saw this earlier on, and this is the one I had to change the question for, because there are 147 industry classifications on LinkedIn. It's about trying to think about the ideal avatar of clients, whether it's a Bob or a Jane, for example, and then narrowing things down. I'll explain a little bit more about that. Also, how you can position yourself as being an expert. So about the importance of optimizing your LinkedIn profile in the right way, how you can build on your expertise and credibility and authenticity, how that actually comes across. And I think the subject of writing content came up quite a bit over the last couple of days. And relating to that part of it, something we'd actually actively encourage, because that does build your credibility and everything else like that. Having said that, if you measure things purely in return on investment, measured by time versus money that comes back in, or equally if you measure it the other way around, where you pay for a service and then generate a really strong lead flow, content creation is good, but it's nothing like as fast in terms of giving results, in terms of the strategies that we're going to share with you today. So it is about presenting yourself as an expert and not hiding. Now, a lot of people, when they put together their LinkedIn profiles, they optimize them in the way that LinkedIn want them to do it. Okay, and the reason that LinkedIn wants you to do it in particular ways is they want people to look at their company pages, and they also want to make your profile look like a glorified CV. But the difficulty is that the bottom line is we're all individuals on LinkedIn. We may be representing a company or organization, but it's not the company per se that's connecting with you. It's that person within that company. So it's actually really important to make sure that your profile is well optimized, and also your strapline, so that what it does, it introduces you a little bit as a person. So I'm not sure you can see my mic. Yes, you think you can. My mouse pointer up here is introducing you as a person, because people plug into that first. A little bit about your organization and your core proposition, okay? Then time with 5 or 6 key pain points. I've actually only got 3 here, but ideally it's 5 key pain points. And that actually requires a lot of thinking about, actually. One of the things we spend a bit of time doing with potential clients or clients is we actually work through with our clients what their typical clients' pain points are. Because you can really establish that. That means all your messaging could be spot on. Also, you're much more likely to convert those people into some form of prospect where they want to really engage with you and have a meaningful conversation. It's also about looking at the 5 key benefits or solutions that you can offer, and some of those ideally should time with the pain points. Then we suggest putting something in there which is some form of a sales hook or diagnostic, or be linked to a video or something where you're showing value. And we actually suggest putting your contact details down here as well. And the reason being that although you can put it under the contact info part of your profile, if someone's not immediately in your network, so there are 2nd or 3rd level connections, they're only going to see a limited amount of information on yourself. And they're not going to see a lot of the contact information. And ideally, this follows the principles of AIDA in marketing terms. So it's attention, interest, desire, action. Okay, and that needs to read like that. Okay, so by repeating your contact details there, that's a really good thing to do. Now, some people get very nervous about putting email addresses in or phone numbers and things like that. The bottom line, the bottom line is, if you want to be a secret detective, then carry on being a secret detective. If you actually want to get clients or business, then it does require a different form of thought process. And this strapline here is very, very highly indexed by Google. So that's one part which is publicly available, even if someone's not connected to you. So it's not just about your role, but it's actually something in a few words that describes what your provision is all about, okay? So it's just worth thinking about that. The other thing, now this is a little bit more obvious, but it is about accelerating the relationship of trust. So let's, now with that, people sometimes make the really big mistake on LinkedIn of actually going out with a pitch pretty well straight away as part of the messaging process. that's the very worst thing you can do. It'll become obvious in a moment or two why that's the case. It's also about building on your credibility. So content creation is great for that. Also, making sure you've got some good recommendations in your LinkedIn profile, which I'll come on to in just a second. But also, if people were to look at you outside generally on Google, for example, and put your name up, just look at how you might be represented out there as well. So this whole subject of trust is really important. So we've talked about recommendations, okay? With recommendations, endorsements on LinkedIn don't come up for anything, but recommendations do. So the chances are, even if you will have done work for clients, and invariably, it's just a case of saying to them, for example, look, John, we've had a great relationship in the last 2 or 3 years. We would really enjoy working with you. I'd love to give you a recommendation. Would you be happy to reciprocate? Okay. And LinkedIn's really good like that, because if you give a recommendation to someone, actually prompts the person to give a recommendation back. And you have got the option to be able to approve what's on the recommendation before it gets published as well. So that is something which is well worth thinking about. And people do pay attention to those. Okay. So then the third part really around this is about the social selling blueprint, which is lead generation system, prospect nurturing system, and sales optimization system. Okay, and that revolves around what we class as the 3 cogs. Okay, so what you've basically got is basically almost like a bucket at the very top. I'm going to use the word bucket because it ties in well with tomorrow, where effectively what you do in LinkedIn is you identify and target all those people you're interested in. You save that selection criteria, which I'll go into more detail in a moment. That goes, those potential leads go into like a bucket at the very top, which is actually above, goes above the third cog. They feed into this lead generation system over here. That's basically the petrol in the tank that gets everything sort of moving, or the rocket fuel, whatever you choose to call it. And of course, because you've pre-selected those, you know the quality is really good. You then need to have a really good prospect nurturing process. And then from that, once people want to engage and so they're asking to have a sales-based conversation, you need to make sure you're very strong in closing those opportunities down. And as part of the call tomorrow with Barnaby, we're going to be focusing a lot around this third cog and how you can take people onto the next part of the journey. We will go on to these other parts as well, but that'll be more from the angle, the way Barnaby looks at it. He is a branding marketing specialist who provides many big brands as well as big charities. For example, the Yellow Daffodil, which in fact, one would be interested to see who knows which charity do you guys identify with in terms of the Yellow Daffodil as a matter of interest. We'd really interested to see who gets the answer right on that one. So we'll be focused on this a lot tomorrow. So and then moving on from that, let's go on to the next slides. It's about thinking about your ideal client. So going back to the avatar again, let's say you wanted to target, try and think of perhaps 5 or 6 different people types, so different types of client that you ideally like to serve, and also try and put a face to there and a name to them as well. So you've got an imaginary Jane or Bob here, and being obviously very simplistic here because we're trying to cover a lot in a short time. And let's say they're in the they're wanting to target people in the computer software industry sector, and you want to reach people at director level, CXO, which is partner owner level, and you want to find them within say 100-mile radius of where you live, and let's say central London or New York or wherever you're located. And then you want to reach people who are not immediately in your network, so there's your second and third level connections. And then you want to narrow it down by key phrase by business analyst, okay? Now, all those things you can do on LinkedIn with using Sales Navigator. The search tools are very, very powerful. And this is like a little bit of a screen grab of what it would look like. And what you'll notice in the very top corner here, if, for example, you search UK, I think currently it's showing about 26 million. If you put these criteria in here, for example, like seniority in the United Kingdom by postcode and by distance, that reduces the number now, and I'm making that up to 1.5 million. By the time you then add in industry sector, that might narrow it down to 65,000. By the time you then reduce it down by number of headcount, by number of employees, that might reduce it down to 2,500. and even that number's quite big. So you might say, okay, well, what key phrases are really good to try and identify with that person? So it may narrow it down to 500 or 600, okay? And that's quite a nice number to work with. So if you always think of microsegments, then it makes the targeting really, really easy. And if you are trying to cover a broad market, it's about trying to put people into lots of different microsegments, because that gives you much more flexibility of your targeting, and it makes everything much more manageable as well. Now I'm going to be in a moment moving on to a bit more about the messaging process, but I'm very conscious of the fact that I've been talking now for a few minutes, and it'd be nice to actually deal with a few questions. Any particular questions that have come up here, Muriel, that you particularly want to flag up? Or
No, everybody's been very quiet this afternoon. No questions. Yeah. No questions. We did have, in response to your yellow daffodil, we had Nikki who said Macmillan. I do believe it's actually Marie Curie. Charlotte was right.
Curie, yes. Yeah, there we go. In fact, Charlotte's right on that one, Charlotte. So well done on that. That's very good. So that's one of the brands he came up with the yellow daffodil concept for that charity. And of course, it's very, very widely used today. So so any questions, do be forward, do be bold, come out with them, because we really want to see those questions, and we can really go from there. So let's have a look. Is there anything obvious here that's sort of jumping out?
No, it's just Nikki's making me laugh.
Right.
She got her ends mixed up because she actually said it was Macmillan.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Ian did make a very good point about this thing about the quality at the end, by the way. Which I didn't know about, Ian, so thank you for sharing that. I think what that does, it probably forces the stream to come out at a certain resolution. So it makes the job for Facebook and YouTube probably a little bit easier, but the bottom line is we'll probably never really know. Okay, so in fact, Nikki's asked a really good question here. So how many micro niches would you target at a time? Okay, so I think it does depend. If you're trying to do a lot of this manually, I would probably only do one micro niche at a time, okay? The reason being is you're going to get yourself so confused over the messaging and everything else that goes with it. And to be frank, if you're trying to manage a 5-message campaign using Excel sheets, for example, it's all right in the first couple of weeks, you can sort of manage, but after that, you start to lose the will to live, to be frank. So what I'd be inclined to do is think about your niches and micro niches, and then focus in on those, one of those to start with. And then once that's so you finish that one, you then start to focus on the next one, and then the next one, okay? Now, if you're using our BizGrowth time machine, actually you can run multiple campaigns simultaneously. Okay, so and you also have different messaging for it as well. So it's really clever. But if you were suddenly trying to do it manually, then just don't box too clever with it, if that makes sense. Okay, so in which case let's get moving. Do keep those questions coming, because it makes it much more fun and interesting for people today as well. Okay, so it's not, I don't want people just to be hearing my voice all the time. I get fed up. I have to live with it. And my wife does as well, so, and my husband. But I want you guys to have a chance to be involved. So in terms of the messaging process, okay, this is the prospect nurturing process. Okay, so this is where you're doing some form of direct outreach. Now, the optimal messaging process is up to a 5-message process, okay? Basically, you've got, going back to the bucket again, you've got a bucket full of leads at the top there. In effect, this part here is effectively the equivalent, let me just go back to another slide if I can find my mouse, it's equivalent to this middle part here, okay? So the bucket is really the bit that comes as the lead generation part here. The prospecting and nurturing process is the middle cog. And once people get to the end of the process where they're actually asking, or part of the way through the process for that matter, where they're asking to have conversations, they're then going into the third cog, if that makes sense. So this is mainly dealing with the second cog. So with this here, it's really about, once you've identified your ideal type of prospects, then basically what it's a case of doing is to actually start to connect and engage with those people. Very important, these messages aren't overtly sales-based, especially in the early stages. So with the connect request, don't just use the standard connection request that LinkedIn offer you. Do always put some form of personal message in there. It doesn't, although it's better to personalize it to each client, it's clearly a prospect. It's in real terms, it's it's a lot more time consuming, but at least take the trouble to write something which people would engage with. And don't try and box too clever with it as well. So, for example, I have seen cases of what people might do, which would sound incredibly sensible, but someone might say something along the lines, hi, John, on looking at your details, it seems that we're connected through Jane Smith, okay? And so we've got a common interest there. Are you open to connecting here on LinkedIn? Now, you might think that's a really good thing to do, but in real terms, the difficulty is most people have got a network above about 150 people, okay? Now, why 150 people, okay? Why is that significant? There's something called Dunbar's number. If you look up on Wikipedia, there's something called Dunbar's number, which basically says that, and this goes back some time ago, well before social media came in, that under normal circumstances, you can't get to know more than 150 to 250 people really well. They're the people who are in your inner network, as it were. So they might be friends, family, friends which are a little bit on the periphery, but still very much within that 150, might be business colleagues or associates that you've got to know over a long period of time, okay? Then you've got an outer ring that goes around that and an outer ring. Now, a lot of people have got 400 or 500 connections linked, or possibly 1,000. Muriel, you've got, is it 13,000? I can't remember. So
yes, I've got 13.
13, yeah. I mean, you'd expect me to have a lot because obviously it's a line of work, but I've personally got 26,000 connections. So if you mentioned, Jane Smith to me, Jane Smith, in reality, in my network, I probably won't know her, Jane Smith. I won't remember her. So in reality, it can actually have the opposite effect. Instead of someone actually accepting the connection request, they might turn around and say, well, actually, I don't know a Jane Smith. It's because the person's actually on the periphery. So don't try and box too clever. Keep it very simple. Then the next message, really, where we class as permission to engage or a thank you message, is about, we recommend sharing something of value at that point. So it could be a PDF. It could be a link to a diagnostic, it could be a video, but it's not a sales-based document, okay? Now, a lot of business development managers, because they're, fundamentally, a lot of business development managers, are hunters by nature, and that's what makes them good at their job, because they're out there to seek out new opportunities. But you don't have the benefit on LinkedIn or a lot of these other platforms of being able to get an audio visual conversation with someone online. Obviously, you can get around it through things like Zoom to a degree and so on. But so what you've got is a very you've got a unidirectional form of communication. So you might send someone a message, you've got to wait for them to come back, and then or you then send another one after a number of days. So it's worth thinking about that. It's about really building a relationship up on depth and sharing value. And with the next message, the time follow-up, it's really about going in with a killer question, okay? When people work with us, we actually help people to understand what the main pain points are that they have, that their clients have, okay? And if you can identify those, that helps you to then identify the killer question, okay? Very important, again, that's got no sales message in there, because bear in mind, the objective of this whole process is to actually get people off the platform as quickly as possible, okay? Because it's only then that you can really start to have meaningful conversations. If you can get people to jump out early, so they're actually asking to have those conversations or wanting more information or curious, then that's a really good thing, okay? Now, if they don't engage, then what would happen? We would send out recommend sending out another message about 7 days after that. And with that one, it would be a little bit more direct. It would be sharing a bit more information about yourself, your organization, and in one sentence, your core proposition. But that ideally is a nice, tight paragraph, no more than that. You may have a little bit of a hook in there. So it could be that we recommend possibly attaching a PDF, which may be a thought leadership piece, which maybe, it doesn't matter. Whereas the first version may only be, or for use the second message, may only be a page. With this, if it's a thought leadership piece and it's sharing genuine value, If it's 3 or 4 pages, it doesn't matter. But again, it should be non-pitch based, sharing genuine value. But with that message, we suggest actually putting your contact details in there and having a much more direct call for action. Okay, that's the only place we recommend doing it, is actually on the 4th message. Then on the 5th message, if someone hasn't engaged at that point, bear in mind, if people start to engage, you stop the messaging sequence so that you then take that conversation offline. If someone's still not engaged by that point, a week after that, we then suggest sending out another message, which ideally goes in with another question. Okay. Now, interesting enough, in our particular case, we've actually started internally, and we can offer this to our clients, not basically on a 5-message process. We can actually extend it to, say, 7 messages. A lot of you may decide that's too much, okay? But certainly up to 5 messages is a really good number. Now, if you do that, what you'll find is because you will have identified your ideal type of leads and your ideal type of prospects, you will have pre-selected those. You know that the people coming at the very top, putting the way they're going in the bucket, are of the highest possible quality, okay? So therefore, when you go through this process here, this is how, for every 100 people you're reaching out to, typically it works out about 10 people out of every 100 are either asking for more information or to have a sales-based conversation. Now, if you try and cut corners, what happens a lot of the time, and this is all very well in the early stages, we're trying to do things manually, but a lot of people stop after the 2nd or 3rd message and think, actually, this is just too much work, and they stop. And what actually happens is the people are just starting to get warmed up, and what you're doing is you're preparing them to go to a competitor. So they may well forget that you started the conversation off. They then start to engage with someone else. So you're literally leaving money on the table. So that's something that's very important to bear in mind. Now, I'm going to come on to some other parts in just a moment, but before I do, let's just make this one final point. Mira, if you could be ready with some questions, that'd be lovely in a moment. If you think about your potential clients and everything else around that, and you start to really position yourself around what's important for them, the big thing is you're fishing for opportunities, you're not having to hunt, okay? And of course, the conversations, especially if you're a bit reluctant on the sales side, you perhaps feel a bit uncomfortable with it. This process is really well suited for people who are not very comfortable in actually sales, okay? Because basically you're fishing here. People are actually, you're positioning it to, you're reaching out people to start with. The bottom line is people are actually coming to you, which puts you in a much better position. So on that point, Mira, I think if I pause for a moment, let me just come away from this for a moment. So you can see both of us. Let me just pull that one out for a moment as well. Mira, what questions we got here? So Chris,
right, well, Chris Cook has asked a really interesting question, actually. Is there a maximum volume of contacts you should contact per day, week, or month?
Yeah, now that is a really interesting question, and the difficulty with this question, Chris, and by the way, Chris is a much valued client with the organisation as well, is that LinkedIn don't publish any figures. If you ask them a question, they won't tell you. Okay, so a lot of it's real guesswork. But what I would say is, because we've been in this sector for 6.5 years, then basically what that means is, obviously we know from experience that generally, if you send out up to about 40 connect requests a day, possibly 50 a day, so up to about 800 per month, generally you're okay. Okay, you can get away with it a little bit more than that for short periods of time, but there are some big caveats to that as well. So, for example, one of the things you have to do, and again, this is a pain because you have to do this manually. LinkedIn actually made it much more difficult to use certain elements of their platform. If you get to a certain number of people where they actually come back and say that they don't know you, reach out to them, they click the button to say they don't know you, what actually happened, LinkedIn measure the algorithms behind that, and if the percentages get too far out of reach, then what will happen is you could end up with a temporary restriction or a permanent restriction applied to your account. But the good news there again is that through some strategies and tools that we can give you, we can actually give you something that actually helps you to get around that problem, because it actually manages that for you. So now, if the person is a first level connection, you can communicate with people at a faster rate than that, okay? But if you're going to do that, then you probably need to slow down the way you connect with people. And of course, it's very important not to spam the network as well. So there's always some caveats about that. But as a rough rule of thumb, Guy, that should give you a bit of an idea, Chris. But you shouldn't start off with that number too quickly, too early on. You need to build up to it as well. So hopefully that helps a little bit. So Alex is saying, I sent a video message, a link in LinkedIn to a CEO of a prospect on Sunday afternoon. Sunday he came back to me wanting to talk. It was an approach he hadn't seen before, and it felt very personal. Now, Alex here, by the way, I did. You did. I'm just going to highlight this. In fact, Alex, it's a really good place to put it. If I asked you whether I could save that video, Alex, because of the consumer professional that he is, I thought he's a fun, clever guy, this guy. He'd taken this trouble to record a really, about a 6 or 7 minute message, absolutely word perfect, perfectly scripted, eye-to-eye contact with the camera all the time, which I struggle with. I'm having to look down here and the camera's up there, okay? He was looking directly onto the camera and did the most perfect presentation ever to me a little while back. If you've gone with a similar approach to a director of a company on Sunday, Alex, it doesn't surprise me that you've got a really good result with that. So, and there are some things coming along as well. We can't offer it yet, but within about 4 to 6 weeks, we will be able to give people the ability to be able to communicate by video on LinkedIn as well, video message on LinkedIn, in a way, again, where it appears to be very, very personal. Not to quite the same extent you're talking about, Alex, there, because obviously I know the amount of time you spent doing these type of things, but there are some really exciting things coming along, which will be, those people who are clients of ours will be sharing with first, obviously, and obviously there'll be some opportunities coming from there. So, Alex, great point, thank you. Nathan, I'd have to try up to contacts, keep. Yeah, now, it's a good point, Nathan. If you could answer this question for me, it'd be really good, actually. Are you talking by email here, Nathan? Or what method of communication are you talking about in terms of 12? Because it actually does have a very significant impact. Possibly just type it in chat very quickly and might be to grab it. The reason I make that distinction is if you were to go back on LinkedIn 2 or 3 years ago, as a case in point, LinkedIn was a much quieter place, okay? Which obviously had a lot of benefits because you had a lot less noise on the platform. On the other hand, but it was quieter because people would typically go to LinkedIn, might be 2 or 3 times a week, or possibly even once or twice a month or a fortnight, okay? So what's happened now, LinkedIn has been recognized being as a serious business tool, so it's become a little bit more noisy, but so long as you do things the right way, it can work very well. Now on email, thank you, Nathan, for that. Interesting enough, it used to be said it would take 7 to 11 pieces of communication by email to maximize your return on investment. And I think those figures were put out probably by people like Infusionsoft and others who've got a vested interest to say that, of course. But that was like 5 or 6 years ago. Now, by email, it can take easily 10, 12, 15, 20 time pieces of communication before you start to really engage with that person by email. And the reason being is that the Microsoft and Google, and there's 1 or 2 others as well, actually make it quite difficult to deliver messages to people's inboxes, especially if you've actually got quite a large list. We've got a very large list of, well, it's 68,000, but we've actually had to remove 40,000 from our database because the algorithms are so hostile now on the email marketing side. If you're not very careful, even though people may have opted in, your messaging could be treated as spam. So the delivery rate of people actually seeing your messages actually can be considerably reduced. So email is a really good thing to do, and you'll notice that that's one of the main channels of business for ourselves. But the bottom line is that on LinkedIn, typically, because the engagement rates are so high, and also because you can pretty well guarantee 100% delivery to people's inboxes, okay? Not perhaps 7% or 20% or 50%, but almost 100% delivery on LinkedIn to people's inboxes. If someone's a first level connection, okay, if someone's not, it's typically about 30%. Well, everyone will see the message, but only perhaps 30 people will have accepted connection requests. The messaging process, because it's seen as a personal, professional, social network, you find the response rates tend to actually be much higher than you get by email. So it doesn't mean to say you should do one or the other, or just say if you've got an email list, just continue to nurture that, but fundamentally engage on LinkedIn as well. And actually these days, what we find is a conversation may start off on LinkedIn, it goes to email, and then goes back to LinkedIn again. It may then go back to phone, and a whole range of different things, and then it comes back again. So a joined up strategy works really well. Now Mira's smiling here. I'm not sure it's not me saying ridiculous things or people making the comments. Okay, so Shah, sorry, I don't know what your first name is, Shah, whether that is your first name.
Is it Vas? It could be Vas.
Yeah. Okay, how often should it be posted on LinkedIn? Should the content be a blog post or keep it short? Now, this is a bit of a different subject. Interesting enough, writing postal articles on LinkedIn are really good. We don't do anything as much as we would like on LinkedIn to posting articles, because actually, in reality, the strategy we talk about here works so well we don't need to. If you were to look at my profile on Mirror, so you would actually see a lot of posting articles on there. But I would say generally, if you're posting once or twice a week on LinkedIn, whether it's an article or a post is entirely up to you, then that's a good thing to do. But in reality, because that in itself is becoming a very noisy place now for posts and articles, LinkedIn really want you to pay to play, okay? So in order to actually get what's happening now, because everyone's tending to do it, it's much more difficult to get attention. But if you were to actually use the messaging process we're talking about here, because the delivery rate is pretty close to 100%, okay, you're communicating with, directly at a one-to-one level on that basis. So if you've got a choice of one or the other, I'd always choose the methodology we're talking about here. If you can do both, it is certainly good to post blogs or articles on LinkedIn, perhaps once or twice a week. But don't feel guilty if you can't do it, okay? That's the bottom line, I would say. Right. Any others, Muriel, there?
Yeah, just one more quickly there. David Vindale.
Yes. Okay. Back. Ask them. So they're interested in. Yes, you can do that. That's a good thing to do. What I would say though is that could be a little bit too direct, Dave. You may need to soften it up a little bit, okay, and ask a couple of questions around that blog or article first, and then lead into that, okay. But it depends. If they're already a first level connection, then you can be a little bit more direct, but I'd still go in probably with a question or two to start with, and then only answer what they're interested in. And that way you'll get a much better result. If they're not a first level connection, you have to go through the dance a little bit more first, okay? But don't try and cut corners. The analogy I'd give is if you go out networking, okay, let's say you're doing physical networking, you haven't met the person before, what would happen? There'll be a continual exchange of conversation over perhaps a 2 or 3 minute period or 5 minute period, where I'm asking you, giving my name and which country I'm from. I'll then go in, ask you a question. You then ask who I am. You then they might ask a question. So as a matter of interest, what do you do? And you have to go through this dance a bit first. If you try and go overtly in too quickly, what will happen is people will disengage and you will kill that opportunity off. So just something just to bear in mind. So hopefully that might help a little bit. Right, so Nikki's saying, yeah, that's a really good strategy, Nikki. If your content writing is a big thing for you, then that's a really good strategy, Nikki, okay? A lot of this is a slow burn, that's the thing I would say, but it can give you good results, okay? So, but thank you very much for that, Nikki, that's really good. Oh, sorry, David's saying, can you bring it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying it was a response to Nikki's post. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Dave, tell us a little bit more about yourself in the chat, or what you're really passionate about. What does a good client look like to you as well? I'm interested to know a little bit more. Okay, partly because it might, if we got time, I might try and bring some up into the green room, as it were. But we'll have to see how it pans out. But just tell us a bit more anyway. 12 attempts. Do you find 5 is often enough on LinkedIn? Yeah, I would say if it's because in reality LinkedIn's, there's so many opportunities on LinkedIn. If you were to start doing some search, you'd be absolutely staggered by the amount of opportunities on LinkedIn. This is what I get frustrated with, is so many people miss the opportunity. Where I particularly tend to go deeper is if you're in a really tight niche. So, for example, one of our clients, past clients, specialised in a special metal coating for ships' engines, and they also did something very similar for the aviation industry as well. Now, clearly, that market is still quite big, but it's very, very niche. Okay, and in that case, it does pay to go really deep. Okay, but generally, if you're a typical type of client with a typical type of needs, with certain types of needs you're after, generally you can achieve really good results with perhaps up to a 5-message process. In our case, we go a little bit deeper than that, but that's simply because we've got all the tools to help us to do that. I've got the resources. But of course, bear in mind that once someone's in your network, you can separately, unlike a pay-per-click campaign, once someone's in your network, they're still in your network, and therefore you can reach out to them either now or at a later date. So they're never really lost within LinkedIn. You've always got ways of engaging with people. So thank you for that, Nathan. That's a really good question. So I think what we'll do is we'll keep going for a little bit. Nathan or anyone else who wants to, or anyone else who got some more questions, or if you've got something you're dying to ask and you would like to be featured on the live stream, then we'll see whether we can bring you in if time permits. But I'll keep going for the moment. So, right, what I'm going to look at is some key numbers. Now, I'm not going to go into massive detail about this today because Nikki very kindly set herself up as being a keen volunteer on this yesterday. She was in the hot seat, and we went through a real life example of this. So I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen. Did you do that, Muriel, or was that me?
Yes, I did. I did.
Thank you for helping me there. Okay, so I realised I missed that part. So basically, just to touch on this, let's say I'm going to use the example of an accountant. Let's say you're an accountant. Typically your clients were turning over between they're a bit above the audit threshold, so it might be say 7 or 8 million per year. Each client might be worth to you £10,000 on average over the first year, or $10,000, whatever your number is. Allowing for a little bit of churn as well. The same client over 3 years is 25,000. Same client again over 5 years, because again a bit more churn or business going out of companies going out of business and so on. The same client was worth on average 35,000 over the 5 years. Okay. Now that's obviously on the accountancy side. That tends to be a recurring revenue stream. If you're a technology or software company where you're charging, it's a SaaS type product, software as a service type product, you would have a recurring element to that as well. Okay, so your numbers may be similar to that, or the principle may be the same. If you're more a company that's offering services where you may go with a much smaller proposition to start with, that leads to a bigger sale, then that leads to a bigger sale, perhaps over a 2 or 3 year period, okay, then change those to your numbers. And obviously we've got the special revenue calculator, so certainly individually we could go through with you as part of a group, as part of a strategy session later on this week. But what you can see there is part of it. Let's say that person wants to get 3 extra clients per month, or 36 per year. It means from a 12-month campaign, based on those numbers, those same 36 clients would generate you £360,000 from it in the first 12 months of engagement with you. Obviously, it's a bit time dependent on this as to when they came in. Over the 3 years, the same people generate 900,000. Over 5, it's 1.26 million. So the point I'm just trying to say here is it's really important to understand your numbers. Because if you understand your numbers, that will give you a really good indication as to what you should be investing in your marketing. Okay. So, for example, an accountant with these type of numbers, let's say an accountant wanted to do a campaign. Let me ask you the question: if an accountant knew they could get a really good lead, but it's going to cost them £1,000 to get that lead, okay, do you think an accountant would be prepared to pay for that lead? Okay, in fact, would they possibly even pay £2,000? Be interested to know your thoughts. I would actually argue yes, because if that client cost you £2,000 to acquire, but was actually going to generate £35,000 of revenue over 5 years, well, it's like putting money in a slot machine where every £1 you're putting in, you're getting £10 out. So you would just keep on doing more of the same. And it's this type of thing I'm trying to encourage, much more strategic in the process. Now, also, we talked about this, I think we talked about it a couple of days ago, but I will just cover this now. Did we cover this on day 2 or day 1? I don't think we did we?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. No, perhaps not. Let me just go over this slide a little bit more with you. Let's take, obviously we had to take several different examples here, but let's say your business is turning over £100,000 per year. Let's say you're a business coach, and your current turnover is 100,000 a year. You want to get it up to 175,000. Basically, and the one way of getting there was to actually invest in your marketing, be strategic about the approach, and everything else went with it. Every month you delay making a decision, which is going to help you get to that particular point, okay, that's actually costing you £6,250 per month that you delay taking action. The same principle applies if it's a £5 million turnover business. If you want to increase your turnover by 50%, every month of delay is costing you £208,000, okay? Now that's a factoring in only that part of it. If you were to say, okay, and today is a really good example of that, if you want to invest in your marketing, let's say you're turning over your £100,000 as a case in point, okay, and let's say you chose not to invest in your marketing, your real loss isn't £6,250, it's potentially much higher than that. And the reason being is if you're not investing in your marketing, your turnover is almost certainly going to go down, not up. So the difference gets even greater. And that's particularly relevant now when you've got a COVID type scenario at this point in time. Basically, may well be a case about repositioning your business. So I think we had this conversation with Hillary on Monday, that she needs to start looking at sectors which are actually going to work much better for her. Okay, so it really is a case of being much more strategic about these things. And fundamentally, if nothing does change, everything does stay the same. But in reality, you're actually going backwards because the rest of the market, the world's going on, continuing to spin. So it's at times like this. And actually, I will just touch on something else because I asked Muriel to remind me, but I have remembered. I did touch very briefly on the bounce back loans yesterday. Okay, I will just remind people about that as well. The reason why I'm harping on about this part of the moment, by the way, I've got no vested interest in saying this, but I think it's due to finish at the early part of November. This is a scheme that was set up by the Chancellor about 2 or 3 months ago. It's been a phenomenal success. In fact, it caused a real problem for the banks. It was so successful. But officially it's due to finish in about 6 weeks' time, okay? It wouldn't surprise me if the Chancellor does choose to extend it, okay? But at the moment, if you were to look on the website, as far as I know, it's still early part of November. Now, why is this something you should consider, okay? What I would say at this point in time, first of all, make sure obviously clearly you're managing your expenses and costs very carefully. Also be very proactive in terms of getting new clients. Okay, that's really important. But also make sure you've got money in reserve in your business, okay? Basically put it into a separate deposit account. The reason why I say that is, first of all, the first year there's no interest that's applied. In subsequent years, it's 2.5%, which is a very low rate of interest. No personal guarantees are required. It's very easy to apply for, unlike a lot of other schemes actually out there. It doesn't, you, for example, you put an application online. In our case, we applied through Metrobank on a Saturday. It took 15 minutes to apply for it. The actual funds were already in our account by the Monday. Okay, so now if you go down that route, make sure as well that you get good advice. For example, let's say your figures last year weren't that exciting, and therefore, when at the point is based on that you are concerned you may only be eligible for much smaller amounts. My understanding is that they will accept projected figures as well. So let's say your turnover last year was £100,000, okay, but your projections this year were £200,000, okay. Now, again, I'm not a professional advisor on this, so don't hold me to everything I'm saying here, okay. One of the questions they ask you on the form is whether your business has been affected by COVID. Okay, it's a very simple tick box. There's a few other questions as well, which you won't understand what the hell they're all about. But that particular question, if you answer yes to that question, then the good thing is if your projections were, say, in January this year, you're going to reach 200,000, potentially base it on the 200,000, okay, because you should be able to borrow up to 25% of that figure. Now, I'm not trying to encourage you to borrow more money that you're comfortable with, so I'm saying put quite a bit to one side as rainy day money. But the crucial thing is invest in your business as well. Anything that's going to help you to get more sales, bring your sales forward. If it requires you to invest in a new piece of equipment, something which is going to help you to get more sales in your account tomorrow over the next few months, regard that as a strategic investment, which is good money versus bad money. If you're making investments in that way, that's a really good thing to do. So if you are interested in that, by all means, as part of the strategy discovery call later in the week or whatever, you're very welcome to raise that again, and we can obviously brainstorm it out a little bit. But your accountant should be able to advise on that. The only thing is I have heard of a horror story where someone was misadvised by their accountant because they based it purely on the previous year's figures, when actually, and therefore he only got £3,500. But actually, if it was based on his projections, he should have got close to 14,000. Okay, so if a person doesn't know much about bounce back loans, a lot of accountants don't know as much as they should, then just make sure the advice you're getting is really sound on it. Okay, so moving on from there, let's get back on track again. Okay, so basically everything we're talking about today is about having a well-oiled sales machine. Okay, sorry, Nathan, I didn't mean to thank you, by the way. Nathan found out, by the way, the closure date for the bounce back loans was the 4th of November. Okay, so there you go. It's only about 5-6 weeks away. Okay, so well-oiled sales machine. So the first part is make sure your LinkedIn profile is well optimized. Make sure you're targeting the right type of target clients. A lot of people think actually it's not that important. If you can't convey your message well on your about section in your profile, you've got a problem to start with. And then if you get your messaging wrong, it's just not going to give you the right results. So make sure you've got your search correct, your profile's well optimized, you understand who you're looking to reach. This part in the middle is the part that takes a huge amount of time. Okay. Well, it depends how active you want to be. If you're going to be not very terribly active, then it doesn't necessarily need to take a lot of time. But if you really want to grow your business, or at least you've lost several clients and you need to replace those because of what's going on at the moment, then you need to really leverage the activity you're going to do. And this is where the Biz Growth Time Machine in particular kicks in, because it does all the heavy lifting for you. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. And then this third cog here, this is the point where you're getting things offline, and we are starting to turn those in. You've got your hot leads or hot prospects. It's then about trying to nurture those conversations that people actually want to buy from you. Okay, so it's worth bearing in mind. I won't go over this again because I have talked about it. In fact, I was speaking to Michael Romling this morning actually, and he's going to be our guest speaker on the 3rd of December. We're speaking again in a few weeks' time because he's actually about to plug into one of these new solutions as well. But a lovely guy, and by the way, if you're on that live stream, you'll learn a lot from him. So he's going to be on in a few weeks' time. And a few more case studies for you. Lorna Leonard, interim financial director. She's only got limited capacity. Once she gets to a certain point, she then has to. She doesn't like to pass work out to other people in that particular case. But in the first 10 days of working with us, she managed to get a £30,000 contract. Okay. I wouldn't say that's the norm necessarily, because that was quite quick, but of course she was absolutely over the moon, and she's a real introvert, by the way. So if you're reluctant on the sales side, we helped her with getting that client, and she did an amazing job. And of course, it was an amazing result for Susanna Schofield, OBE. Basically, we worked things with her, so she developed a really strong pipeline of opportunities, and is very confident getting clients on the back of it. Nick Aldridge, not plugged into our standard service, but he's a chief executive officer of PayPal Giving for the UK, US, and Australia. I think he's got about 3 or 4 territories under his remit. He actually founded PayPal Giving to start with, okay? And we've done a bit of work with them on the data enrichment side, and he gave us this really lovely testimonial as well there. And then Jubilee Selling Trust, so this can work very well with the charity space as well. We helped them to raise over £270,000 worth of sponsorship and private charters for their ships. They're an amazing charity, does a lot of work with adults and children with disabilities. And again, these organisations all plugged in, well, apart from PayPal Give, it's a bit different, they all plugged into our 5-message process to help them to get their optimum results. And then going back to the point that several people raised today, we got that very large email list that generates about 25% of the opportunities for us. And in fact, a lot of you today have joined us from LinkedIn, or possibly by email. Referrals, obviously, we're very grateful for those, greatly appreciated. Facebook, Instagram, only a small part. We tend to use that a little bit for retargeting, but for us in the business space, business charity space, and obviously for many of you on this call today, LinkedIn's a great place. Facebook and Instagram can work well, but you bear in mind you have to pay to play now. And what I said yesterday, if you haven't got a well-oiled process behind the scenes, you can burn a lot of cash as well. So it's just worth thinking about it. And 61% of the business and connections we make of value are through LinkedIn. In fact, 3 of our best partnerships. In fact, Alex Ryan was one of those, by the way. He's on our advisory team. Also, Karen Davis, who was on this call on Monday. I've been actually through people we've met through LinkedIn. Okay, so just bear that in mind. It's not just about sales, but who you meet who can really help you to get you to where you want to be. Okay, and remember what I said a bit earlier on the week, that if something is free, then you are the asset and the commodity. Okay, and that's particularly a case in point. In fact, there's been a documentary that's gone out on, I think it's on Sky, I'm not sure, about social networks generally. You are basically the reason they can run these platforms for free is obviously they make a lot of money from advertising, but it's the sheer amount of data that they've got on you and the retargeting they can do, which makes that all possible. So that on these platforms, where it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Google, whatever it may be, it's really a case of either investing your time or your money or both, okay? And I say that deliberately. And of course, the difficulty if you're spending a lot of your time on this type of stuff, how much money are you actually really losing? Because you're basically, that time could be billable time, which of course is generating, putting money in the bank. If you can get something or someone to actually help you with all that heavy lifting, that can stand you in good stead. Now, Mira, I'm going to pause just for a second to deal with any questions that come up. Any particular questions or points that come up, Mira?
Not since I last gave them to you. We've had nothing through at all. I think what you're saying is so interesting that people are glued to absorbing it, because it is. It's really
Thank you very much, Muriel. So I didn't even have to give Muriel a £20 note to say that. So that, now we are about to come up to the competition part, and because I need to give time for everyone to be able to complete the questionnaire. Okay. What I'm going to do is we probably won't have time to bring someone into the green room today. We'll see how it goes, but I don't think we will. I'm going to just cover over the next few slides. Then we're going to run the competition, okay, and then we'll have a 3 or 4 minute wrap up. We'll announce the prize winner at the very end, if we can. If it's a tie, I say we'll roll into tomorrow, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let me just go over these few slides. If you've got some questions coming, by the way, then what I would suggest you do is type them into the chat. I'm quite happy to stay a little bit at the end to answer any outstanding questions as well. But type them into the chat, and I'll try and come off at the very end. Also, when we're running the competition, I will put something on in the background. I've got a bit of problem with sound on it, actually, but I'll put something in the background. So don't feel under pressure with it. We want everyone to have a fair chance. Okay, so we've got about 7 or 8 minutes before the competition. Okay, so in terms of our service provision, basically you can either become involved as an associate member, okay, in which case it's a way of bringing your sales forward, but the difference is that we'll show you what to do. We're giving you a lot of the tools, but you're doing it yourself, okay? Or you can plug into what we class our BizGrowth Premier membership, which enables to bring your sales forward and get your time back. And in effect, very tongue-in-cheek, but you'll see the starting time roll over the next few months. But you haven't come up with the Time Travelers Club. Okay, so a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm sure everyone's got a sense of humour here, so hopefully it's all fine. Now, basically, as part of the associate membership, what we do is we'd actually help you with your to understand your market segmentation. We also, this is delivered through e-learning and also through one-to-one coach or group coaching. We also show you how to use Sales Navigator in an advanced way. We also show you how to optimize a LinkedIn profile. We also explain a lot more about the optimum fine message process. And as part of that, you also plug into our business growth, personal business growth diagnostic. We'll be focusing a little bit on your marketing plan and social selling blueprint. And you also get access to what we class as a taster session of our breakthrough boardroom. This is where you have a chance to meet other CEOs and leaders. It's run under Chatham House rules. You can discuss anything of a confidential nature, knowing it's not going to go outside the room. We deliberately cap that at 12 people, okay? But the nice thing is they become almost like your advisory board, okay? And almost like an accountability group as well to help you with your business. Now, as an associate, you get access to one of those over the 12 months. And it's delivered through a group on individual training, live streams, and collaboration sessions. And you've also got the e-learning, Q&A series, and so on. Now, with that, we've tried to make the entry point really low. I know, obviously, these days, money's tight, but it's a single payment which covers the first 12 months of $997 plus VAT, or you can spread that as 3 payments of $397 plus VAT, okay? That's 12 months of membership, but we front load the services for you because we want people to get a quick return on investment. So, so a lot of it we try to deliver in the first few weeks for you, depending how fast you want to go. But you're very much part of the community over that time when you get access to a closed Facebook group as well. Okay. Now, in terms of the other part of it, on the Business Growth Premier membership, by the way, that rocket is going to change. This is a temporary graphic for the moment. Okay. No clues as to what it might be. Okay, but I'll tell you what, if someone guess what it might be in the chat, someone will win a book, well, 2 books as part of it today, by the way. But if you think you know what that graphic might be changed into, then one person will win those 2 books I mentioned earlier on. A bit of fun. Anyway, so on the Premier membership side, again, we able to go in much more in depth about your market segmentation and around your LinkedIn Sales Navigator and so on. So that first part's very similar to what you saw with the associate part. But what you also get access to is a much more detailed growth diagnostic. We go in really deep within your business, and we also give you access to the personal growth pack, business growth pack, and business scale-up pack. And the scale-up pack is not relevant for everyone, but if you're wanting to more grow and scale your business, that is actually great. Now, Ian, I'm beginning to not like you very much, or like you a great deal. I'm not sure which way it is. But Ian, you won the prize. Okay, so not the real one, I'm afraid, but the big one. But you've got both books. I think which channel is yeah. Love it. Very good. I love the comments. TARDIS and the DeLorean as well. Yeah, it's getting better. It's getting better. But yeah. So I think what we'll do will be give Ian and Damien 2 books each. So we'll sort you out afterwards. Okay. So there we go. Now, with those growth packs, it incorporates the 12 pillars, which we feel are the fundamentals and essentials for growing a business, but also looks at things much deeper. You also get access to 10 online breakthrough boardrooms as part of that over the 12 months, not the one. So we will be giving people the option who are Premier members as well to start taking part in the physical versions of those. There'll be a slight extra cost for those as soon as we can, but because of COVID, clearly that's not going to happen until probably spring next year, all being well. You crucially get the BizGrowth Time Machine, okay, which incorporates a laptop. You also get some special software to enable you to run your campaigns, and we show you how to use it. And you also benefit from the training we talked about. And so what you get as part of the Time Machine is you also get we show you how you can automate your campaigns, but do it in such a way that you're still in full control of the process. And as people start to engage, it'll automatically stop the activity on that one person until you've been able to actually confirm that you've dealt with it, and you can opt people to carry on with the rest of the campaign or take them out of it. It dramatically will increase your prospect reach because will enable you to run at safe operational limits on your LinkedIn account. Okay. And you also can run up to 2 simultaneous campaigns within the Premier membership. You can go further than that with a level of membership above that, but 2 simultaneous campaigns. So you can run a campaign across your 2nd and 3rd level connections and your 1st level connections at the same time. Okay. It also gives you a lot of analytics within that part as well and helps you on the segmentation. And it does increase your time efficiency by 5 to 10 times. Now, the reason we can make that quite bold statement is if you were to reach out and say send out 800 connection requests per month and manage a 5-message process, and we know this because we've got a team in the Philippines who've been doing this manually for our clients up to now, and our existing clients are all moving across to this because it's at a considerably reduced cost by doing it this way. It's on that type of size campaign, it takes, depending what level of activity, between 2.5 hours to 5 hours a day if you're going to do this manually, and you'd be having to use spreadsheets and keep track and everything like this. This basically cuts pretty well all that out. Probably so you're spending no more than about half an hour a day, plus a little bit of personal message replying as well, might be another 15 or 20 minutes. So it means you can really leverage your time. And if you're a larger organization, then of course you can buy several biz growth time machines, which includes the laptop and software. And you can, each one of your BDMs can actually have one of these as well. So that's another option that's available to you. So as I say, there's 2 options really as far as today is concerned. It is about making sure you get the right one. If you decide to start up with the associate membership, if you do upgrade within the 30 days, we do provide you with an offset, so you don't pay twice. And that's what a lot of people do. Equally, we've got some clients who just decide to go straight off the bat. They just want to get results now, and they just go straight for the full package. So in terms of what you'll see on the questionnaire, which you're about to do in just a moment, the competition questionnaire, just to explain the structure of it, the first part of it's really straightforward: first name, last name, email address. The next part asks you a little bit about the turnover of your business and what you would like to achieve over the next 12 months and 3 years. Again, if you're not 100% sure, just give your best guesstimate on those, okay? Then you get to the part where the questions relate to the competition. It'll be very clear because they will say competition questions. Now, if you have missed some of these sessions, what I would suggest you do is it's multiple choice. You've got 1 of 4 options against each question. There's 10 questions in total. If you're not sure about the answer, just take a stab at it because you've got 1 in 4 chance of getting that question right anyway, okay? If you really don't want to do those bits, you can skip the questions altogether and go straight on to the next part. And that enables you then to book in a discovery session. Now, what I'll do is, ideally, it shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes to complete, okay? If we can see there's 2 or 3 people still needing a bit more time, don't worry, we will give you like a 1 or 2 minute, we'll give you a countdown so you have a little bit extra time on it. So just give it your best shot, okay? And what you'll get an option of doing as well is to book in either a free strategy call with me on a one-to-one basis afterwards. But what we're doing as well is we're doing some group-based, maybe a very small group. It might be 1 person, could be 3, 4, 5 people. Sessions on tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Friday at 10 o'clock, Monday we're running 2 sessions at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Okay, so if you think, if you've got as much as possible, because obviously we're trying to keep these as quite close, intimate groups, if you could take all the options that apply rather than just 1 or 2, that would greatly help us. So, for example, you actually are happy with any of those times on the strategy call as well, just tick all the boxes, and then we'll obviously come back to you and with a proposed way of engagement. Okay, so yes, Renas, my voice has recovered, and Kim, welcome. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Helen, as well, for your kind comments back to Damon and so on. So that's great. Right. So what else have we got? This is the part of the form. Okay. So if you go to the business growth, can I do this as a screen share? Just bear me a moment. I'm going to see where I can do this as a screen share. Just bear me a moment. No one worry about timing as well, by the way, because we'll make sure everyone's a fair chance. Maybe a second. Except it would be helpful if I could type. February.com. I've just got to drag this into this other screen. Yeah, there we go, like that, so you can see it. So if you go to the businessgrowthbureau.com website, under the Learn More option here, there is the 3-day mini conference questionnaire. Okay, so if you choose that option there, so if you choose to Learn More, 3-day mini conference questionnaire, that takes you to this form here, and basically you're welcome to all get started now. Muriel, if you could very kindly type that link in the chat. Have you got that? You've got it. Brilliant. Okay. You got the link there as well, so you can just click that. Now, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to see how far everyone's got. Okay, so behind the scenes, obviously, I can't. If someone gets really stuck on a question, I can't tell you what the answer is. Okay, of course, but if you get really stuck over something, then do put something in the chat, and Mira will try and pick that up, and we'll try and help you. So basically, if everyone would like to give that a go, starting now, that'd be fantastic. What I will do is I will try and stream a video. As well. I think the audio is not going to come up, but if you want to know how to get that, so you can just have that on the background. If you go to TV video, and if you were to go to case studies and testimonials, sorry, not that one, selling adventures, you'll see Tenacious selling adventures there, which is quite fun. Also, if you want to see some testimonials as well, if you go to testimonials, but in particular choose that one there, that's also really good fun to watch. So I'll put the video back on in the background while this is going on. But I'll mute the sound because we've got some problem with the sound coming across on that. So best of luck, everyone. If you've got questions, then just type them in the chat. Mira will be keeping an eye on it, so will I. We'll try and help you, and we'll go from there. So best of luck, everyone. And we'll be rejoining in about 15 minutes or so, depending how everyone gets on. See you in about a bit. Take care. Hello, Muriel. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
It's all right, everyone. I think there's still 3 or 4 people still filling in their details at the moment. So
Okay. Well,
we want to be fair to everyone. I'm just trying to do another refresh to see how many people. I think most people are very close to finishing. Looking at the details, I think we've got. Bear me a second. I'll do a little bit of a check. Don't worry. We want to give everyone a fair chance. So just bear me a second.
Yeah, another couple have just come through.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can see some almost there, I think. Just crucially, when you do get to the end, remember to hit that final button, okay? By the way, when it says, makes reference about the report, actually the report is something we go through with people when we have a bit of a one-to-one. I've forgot the system doesn't send it automatically, so I thought I'd best flag that up, just in case anyone's expecting something different. Okay, so we just got, maybe a second. Just try to
so exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah. Bear me a minute, just have a look here. There is one person who's tried to enter it twice. We probably will have to disallow the second response. So just to warn you of that. But anyway, let's see what is happening at the moment. How far away are people from finishing? So I think the ones we've got, well, Hillary's already completed hers. We got Jane, who's completed, sorry, is part of the way through. Kim is part of the way through. And Helen Ross is part of the way through. The rest of you, I think you've all completed your details. So I'm just going to give everyone another minute or so. Actually, Helen, Jane and Kim, can you just type in the chat how much longer you feel you need? Just put a little comment in the chat. I think you're probably pretty close, aren't you? So I'm just going to do a refresh. Okay. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, any comment, any feedback, Mira? I'll just look at the other parts. If anyone's made any comments, please do.
Yeah, what's an overlapping space industry? Jonathan is asking.
An overlapping, sorry, what's the question there?
What's an overlapping space industry?
An overlapping space industry, what's the context of that question?
I don't know. Jonathan, can you give us a bit more information about that, please? Thank you. Right, Kim Horwood has finished hers now. Oh, right. Oh, that was for Renato. Ignore me. Okay. Thanks, Jonathan.
You're right. Okay.
Right. Kim's finished. Nikki Wild hopes that her note-taking has proved lucrative today.
Yeah. So, right. We've got Hillary. I would have to disallow your second application, actually, if that's all right. So, because we only allow, because otherwise it's unfair to everyone else on that. I'm sure it was accidental, but I just need to let you know that out of fairness to everyone else. So it may be that obviously perhaps you lost things part of the way through. But anyway, Helen, I think you are still outstanding at the moment, and Jane, is that correct? Let me just confirm. At the moment, they're both unfinished. Let's just see how far you're away from finishing. So Helen and Jane. Yeah, okay. And then we've got, Jane, let's have a look. I think, Jane, you've got part of the way through. So I think what we're going to do, give everyone 30 seconds more, and then we'll close the competition. Okay, so just bear me a second. Right, so what we'll do then is in a moment or two, when I'll give everyone 30 seconds more just to close it, finishing everything off. What we'll do in a moment, so I'll just go through the final few slides of the presentation, and then what we'll do is I'll actually share with you what the correct answers are, okay? And then what we'll do is we'll actually share the results for today. How does that sound like a good plan? Right, I know we've overrun by a few minutes, but I just want to be very fair to everyone today. So just going to do another refresh to see whether anyone else is outstanding. Okay, wait a second. Right. So has Jane Hooper come back, Muriel?
I don't think so.
Jane, could you just, if necessary, skip the rest of the answers, because obviously you sort of run out of time at the moment, but just complete the last few at the end. I know definitely you haven't won it, Jane. Okay, so if you could just complete the rest of the form, that'd be lovely, and just save your details. But what we'll do is we'll announce the results in a few moments anyway, but I'll give you all the correct answers. I just need to try and work out a few of the responses here, just to make sure who's in the lead here. Won't be a second. I just sort these into order. Right, give me a second. Okay, Nikki, right. Okay, so right, it's very close run this today. Actually, it's really interesting seeing how it's all shaping up.
Do bear in mind, Rupert, that we've got some people with the same first names
yes,
today, so you need their surname as well.
Yeah. Okay, so right, what we'll do is go through the last 3 or 4 slides of the presentation, then I'll go through the correct answers of everyone, and then we'll announce the results. Okay, so there's not many slides to cover off. We're almost done anyway. So just in summary, what we've sort of covered over the last few days is everything to market insights and building tribe supporters to achieve growth, the importance of the community, time with live streams and networking. Obviously, we discussed the balanced product portfolio, the marketing mix, the social selling blueprint, business growth packs, and also we talked about LinkedIn and how you can use the business growth time machine to get more sales, and how you can increase your lead flow of opportunities, and how you can get support through business tools and everything else that goes with it to bring your sales forward, get your time back. And just a quick reminder for tomorrow, is we've got the the Flexi ticket, which is available under the events drop down. So businessgrowthbureau.com, then events. Okay, choose that option. You can book a Flexi ticket to join the online networking collaboration session, which is from 4 o'clock to 4:45, and then the live stream with Barnaby Winter is at 4:55 till 6 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, and it's just very complimentary tomorrow, so I think you'll find that really useful. Barnaby will be covering how to turn high-quality leads into high-quality business, and be looking at designing your marketing like a bucket. We talked about buckets a little bit today. The definition of brand today won't be what you think. How you can apply marketing context after the point of purchase, how to make positive post-purchase amazing, and how to get them to buy more and become an advocate for your business. So all very relevant tomorrow, and we'll be obviously discussing quite a bit how these parts, what we do and what Barnaby is talking about, complements everything else. For those of you who have indicated your preferred times, what we will do is obviously come back. Obviously, if there's some for tomorrow morning, we're going to need to come back quite quickly, in which case, perhaps, Miro, if it's all right with you, I might ask you to go back to anyone who's requested tomorrow morning and just confirm. Obviously, if it's on Friday, we've got a tiny bit more time, but we'll confirm the slots over the next, tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. And obviously, those who booked requested a strategy call, you've got the option to click the link directly for that. Actually, Miro, can we put the 45-minute link for me into the chat in case someone needs it in the form? So if someone wants to bulk on a 45-minute call with me and they're not in a discovery session, then obviously we can make that available. Okay, and just wait a second, just list my screen. There are the contact details as well. Let's just deal with a few closing comments or questions. Right, right, a bit of chat going on here generally. So yeah, and we're asking me a few comments generally, which are obviously to do with some chat going on generally. So let's just flag this up quickly here. If for those people who do want to book in a 45-minute call with me personally, then obviously do use that link there. We'll leave it in the chat for you so you can grab it. Now, I think we need to take everyone out of their suspense. Just let's see where everyone's at the moment. Just do a final refresh.
Oh, we've just got one last one through.
Have we?
Yes.
Right. God, that's by being a prayer, isn't it?
That's Helen. Yeah, lovely.
Right.
Helen's has come through.
Let me just make sure we're being fair to everyone again. So just check these numbers very carefully. Right, okay, so I'm going to give you the results, okay?
Hang on, Rupert. Are you ready? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
Go on then.
I'm going to announce the results in just a moment. I'm going to give you the correct answers, okay? Then you may be able to get a bit of a clue as to who actually is won today, so a little bit of fun with all of this. So the first question was, Rupert earlier this week referred to the importance of building, and the correct answer is circular relations where everyone wins. Okay. What did Rupert say was the percentage of business at BGB received through LinkedIn? Is 61%. Then there's a question about social media, and the correct answer is you either invest your time or you invest money or you invest both. That was the correct answer. What percentage of profiles did Rupert say that were not properly optimized on LinkedIn? And the correct answer is 75%. What does Rupert refer to as the engine for growth? It's when you're generating 10 hot prospects from every 100 cold leads. So that was the last option. What is the social selling blueprint? The social selling blueprint is the lead generation system, the prospect nurturing system, and the sales optimization system. The other answer about the messaging process, the correct answer was connect request plus up to 4 messages. Okay, and the reason we put up to 4 messages, you may remember, we said that if people jump out early, then the rest of the messaging process would actually stop. So, so connection request goes out plus up to 4 messages, assuming someone hasn't responded in that time apart from accepting the connection request, and that means it's a total 5 message process, if that makes sense. Lost opportunity cost of taking no action. If you wanted to increase your current turnover from 250k to 400k, the correct answer is £17,708 precisely, because the reason for that is it would be £12,500 if we were just looking at the lost opportunity cost of getting new business from new clients. But you remember the question also said if your annual turnover current annual turnover was to decrease by decrease by 25%. So that actually basically means that that the actual correct answer is 17,708. There's actually 12 pillars in total, and the correct answer, the final part, is bring yourself forward and get your time back. Okay, so hopefully we've got everyone there. Now I can tell you, I'm really surprised. We've actually got several tiebreakers today. I thought we might end up with 1 or 2. We've actually ended up with 4, much to my surprise. And I'm deliberately trying to make some of the questions quite complex. So the people who are in the final round is, bear me a second, Ian Randall. So well done, Ian, you're in the final round. Jonathan Price, you're in the final round. Nathan King, you're in the final round, and Nikki Wild is in the final round. So there you have it. Now, what we've got to then decide what to do, and this is why we deliberately actually had to qualify it, is we also need time to look at the responses on the tiebreaker questions. And if I feel a bit compromised, because I know a couple of people on this call, I'm going to ask, if necessary, either Muriel or more likely Barnaby, or might be Chris Cooper, tomorrow to be the arbiter for the actual final winner. Okay, so because it's really difficult with this. In fact, last time round, Nikki was the runner-up last time round to someone else. Actually, Nikki got 90% last time round. Someone else got 100. So Elisa was a clear winner. This particular occasion, there was actually 4 people as part of the tie break. So I'm wondering whether we can draw the 50. I'm not even sure we can draw the £50 one tonight, Muriel, because we're going to have to look at the tiebreaker questions as well. So look, the very simple answer is to this. It is going to mean joining us on the live stream tomorrow, because obviously Barnaby or Chris are going to be acting as the arbiters for this. It's going to be a good fun session tomorrow. Okay, so that the crucial one that the 4 of you in particular need to join is the session which is from 5 till 6 tomorrow, and we'll announce the final winner then. So I'm sorry there's like a 24-hour wait on it, but I think obviously it's worth it to try and make sure fair play and we get it right. So I'm pleased to say, from your point of view and anyone else's point of view, it's very much a wrap. And thank you very much. As a matter of interest, Nikki, which one did you? I'll know the answer because I have a look at it later on, but I've just not looked at that level of detail. Which was the? In fact, there's 2 answers that you. The 4 tiebreakers got 80%, by the way. Was the top score is 100%. Which answers did you get wrong? As a matter of interest, actually, be interested to know. Anyway, never mind. Perhaps we'll worry about that another time. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Very conscious of the fact we've overrun a little bit. Do reach out if you've got any questions. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll see you on the collaboration networking session tomorrow if you can make it, and also on the live streams. And best of luck to the 4 of you are the tiebreakers. Have a wonderful evening. Yeah.
Bye-bye all. Take care. Lovely to see you.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.